How do I explain to my 10-year-old daughter that crop tops are not appropriate for her?
What conversations are you having with your 10-year-old son about not sexualizing girls who wear crop tops? Better yet, what conversations are you having with the grown men in your life, creating an environment where what you're saying seems like sound advice? We're spending all this energy teaching little girls that their bodies are the problem, that they need to cover up, that they are responsible for other people's reactions to them. But where's the conversation about teaching boys, and more importantly, teaching men, that a 10-year-old's stomach isn't sexual no matter what she's wearing? And let's be real about what age appropriate actually means here. Because when we say crop tops aren't age appropriate for a 10-year-old, what we're really saying is men might look at your child's body in a way that makes us uncomfortable. So instead of addressing the men, we're telling little girls to change. Because they can see that we aren't also telling little boys that they can or can't dress a certain way. Here's an idea. What if we spend more time teaching our boys that girls' bodies aren't there for their consumption? What if we taught men that children's bodies aren't sexual regardless of what they're wearing? What if we put the responsibility on the people doing the sexualizing instead of the people being sexualized? Because right now we're raising girls to believe their bodies are inherently shameful and need to be hidden, while raising boys to believe that if they're distracted by a girl's body, that's her fault for not covering up enough. Now, look, I'm not saying that there aren't things we should be doing to prepare our daughters for a world where predatory men exist, but I want to see the work you're doing to actually change that world. For every conversation like this you have with your daughter, you better be having 3 with your son. You don't have a son? Then you better be talking to your friends who do have sons, pressing them to make sure they're having those conversations. You better be calling out other men when they make inappropriate comments about women and girls. You want to protect your daughter? Teach her that her body belongs to her, that she has the right to wear whatever makes her comfortable, and that if anyone makes her feel uncomfortable about her body, then that is their problem to fix. And then go offline and have some conversations with the men in your life about why a 10-year-old stomach should never be considered sexual in the first place. Last week I made a video responding to a psychologist giving advice on how to tell your 10-year-old daughter that crop tops aren't appropriate for her. And my point was that instead of telling our daughters that their clothes are a problem, we should be having conversations with the men in our lives about why a child's stomach isn't sexual to begin with. And I got a lot of comments from people saying I'm being too idealistic and that I still need to protect my daughters from harm. Let me be crystal clear. I never said not to protect your daughters. I'm already having age-appropriate conversations with my 8-year-old about staying safe in dangerous situations. That's not what this is about. My point in responding to that video wasn't that you're not allowed to talk to your daughter about protecting yourself. My point is that it's irresponsible to post a video like he did without addressing the actual problem, which is that some grown men are predatory. Not that your child's clothes make her a target. By focusing solely on how she is dressing or using the exact same logic that people use when they ask sexual assault victims, well, what were you wearing? You're putting the responsibility on the victim to prevent their own assault instead of on the perpetrator to not assault people. But here's the part that really gets to me. You think having these conversations with men is some pie-in-the-sky idealism, but it's actually the most practical thing you can do to protect your child right now. According to RAINN, the overwhelming majority of child sexual abuse, 93%, is committed by someone the child already knows. Family members, family friends, coaches, teachers, neighbors, etc. People who are already in your child's life. So when you say I'm being too idealistic, what you're really saying is that it's more realistic to teach your daughter to cover up than it is to have a conversation with your creepy coworker about keeping his eyes to himself. The conversation I'm talking about isn't theoretical. It's immediate. It's happening in your house, at your family gatherings, with the men who are already around your children. Don't tell your daughter, go put on a sweater because Uncle Bob is coming over. Tell Uncle Bob that you see what he's doing, and if you ever catch him looking at your child that way again, she won't have an Uncle Bob anymore. The predator doesn't care what she's wearing. They care whether the adults around her are paying attention and willing to intervene. And I want to be clear about something. I know this is both an individual and a systemic issue. I'm not saying that having these conversations with the men in your life is going to solve patriarchy or end sexual violence. This is one piece of a much larger puzzle that includes changing laws, reforming institutions, and shifting cultural attitudes about consent and bodily autonomy. While we're working on those bigger changes, we can start with what's in front of us right now. Absolutely teach your daughters about bodily autonomy. Teach them that their bodies belong to them, that they have the right to say no, that they can and should set boundaries. Teach them that they deserve to feel safe and comfortable in their own skin, period. Not because it prevents assault, but because it's their fundamental right as human beings. Because here's what I really need you to think about. If you've taught your daughter that it's her fault for wearing something that you consider revealing, do you think she's going to come and ask you for help if something happens? Do you think she's going to want to come and talk to you and tell you? Or is she going to hide it out of shame
because she remembers you telling her it was her fault for being dressed that way. That's not protection. That's setting up a barrier between you and your child when she needs you the most. And that's the opposite of keeping her safe.